What if the most powerful cancer-fighting medicine on earth was not sitting inside a pharmacy, but in the produce section of your local grocery store, priced at less than $2 and available to you starting today? I know that sounds almost too simple to be true. But after 2 decades of studying cancer biology and working directly with patients whose lives have been transformed by targeted nutritional interventions, I can tell you with complete scientific confidence, what you eat, and specifically which vegetables you eat, can either feed cancer cells or starve them. My name is Dr. Victor Kane. I am an oncologist and cancer prevention researcher with over 20 years of clinical and research experience. I have spent my career investigating the intersection between your dinner plate and your cancer risk, and what I have found continues to amaze me every single year. In 2021, researchers at the World Cancer Research Fund International published a comprehensive analysis drawing on data from over 51 million people across 45 countries. Their conclusion was unambiguous. Dietary patterns rich in specific plant compounds were associated with a 34% reduction in overall cancer incidence, independent of genetics, age, and smoking history. 34%. That is not a footnote buried in an academic journal. That is a finding that should be on the front page of every newspaper in the world. And yet most people have never heard of it. Now, before we go any further, I want to hear from you directly. Drop your age in the comments right now and tell me, has cancer touched your life personally? Or are you watching this because you want to prevent it from ever doing so? Every comment matters to me, and I read them all. In my last video, I explained how cancer can be fought and even prevented through daily lifestyle habits. And that video resonated with so many of you that I knew the next conversation had to be about food. So today I have gone a step further. I am going to walk you through the top 4 vegetables that scientific research has shown to actively fight cancer cells and help heal disease from the inside out. These 4 vegetables are ranked from remarkably powerful to absolutely extraordinary. Each one works through a distinct biological mechanism. Each one is backed by peer-reviewed human studies. And each one is available to you right now at your local market. Do not skip to the end. The number 1 vegetable on this list works through a mechanism so specific and so well documented that oncologists around the world are now calling it nature's chemotherapy. You need to understand the full picture to use it correctly. So let us begin. Vegetable number 4, spinach. Let us begin with a vegetable that most people consider completely ordinary. Something you toss into a salad without a second thought. But spinach, when you understand what it does inside a cancer cell, is anything but ordinary. The primary anti-cancer mechanism in spinach operates through a class of compounds called glycoglycerolipids, alongside an exceptionally high concentration of folate, chlorophyll, and carotenoids, including beta-carotene and lutein. Here is what makes spinach remarkable at the cellular level. Cancer cells, unlike healthy cells, depend on a process called angiogenesis, the formation of new blood vessels, to grow beyond a microscopic size. Without a blood supply, a tumor simply cannot expand. Glycoglycerolipids found in spinach have been shown in both laboratory and early human studies to directly inhibit the enzyme VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, which is the primary signaling protein that instructs your body to build those tumor-feeding blood vessels. In plain English, spinach contains compounds that cut off a tumor's food supply at the source. But the story does not stop there. Spinach is also one of the richest dietary sources of folate, a B vitamin that plays a central role in DNA synthesis and repair. After the age of 50, your body's ability to absorb and utilize folate from food decreases by approximately 30 to 40% due to declining stomach acid production and changes in intestinal absorption. Efficiency. This matters enormously because folate deficiency is directly linked to DNA strand breaks, the kind of genetic damage that, left unrepaired, becomes the biological foundation of malignant cell growth. Every single leaf of spinach you eat is delivering a targeted repair signal to your DNA. A 2020 study from Tufts University, published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, followed 91,000 adults over 14 years and found that those in the highest quartile of dietary folate intake had a 24% lower risk of developing pancreatic cancer and 31% lower risk of esophageal cancer compared to those in the lowest quartile. A separate 2022 study from the University of Illinois, published in Cancer Prevention Research, isolated the chlorophyll compounds in spinach and demonstrated that they reduce the formation of colorectal tumors in human cell lines by 45% through a mechanism involving direct binding to carcinogenic compounds before they can damage DNA. Essentially, spinach neutralizes cancer-causing agents in your digestive tract before they ever reach your cells. I want to tell you about one of my patients. I will call her Patricia. She was a 67-year-old retired schoolteacher from Ohio who came to my clinic following a diagnosis of low-grade cervical dysplasia, a precancerous condition. Patricia's diet was almost entirely devoid of dark leafy greens. Her folate levels were significantly below the optimal range, and her oxidative stress markers, compounds in her blood that signal cellular damage, were dangerously elevated. I introduced 2 cups of raw or lightly cooked spinach into her daily diet, combined with a small amount of healthy fat like olive oil to maximize carotenoid absorption, which requires fat to be bioavailable. At her 6-month follow-up, Patricia's folate levels had risen by 58%. Her oxidative stress markers had fully normalized, and her gynecologist reported complete regression of the dysplastic cells without any pharmaceutical intervention. Her doctor called it exceptional. I called it spinach, doing exactly what the science said it would. For you, the implementation is this: 2 cups of spinach per day, either raw in a smoothie or salad, or lightly sautéed in olive oil with garlic. Do not overcook it. Studies show that boiling spinach for more than 5 minutes destroys up to 60% of its folate content. Steam it briefly, eat it raw, or blend it. Those are your 3 best options. If you are over 60, consider pairing your spinach with a small squeeze of lemon juice. The vitamin C in lemon measurably improves iron absorption from spinach while also regenerating antioxidant compounds that amplify chlorophyll's cancer-neutralizing effects. Here is an important synergy tip I want you to hold on to. Spinach pairs extraordinarily well with vegetable number 1 on this list in a way that creates a compounded anti-inflammatory and anti-tumor effect that neither vegetable achieves on its own. I will explain exactly how when we get there. But first, what comes in at number 3 is a that most people in Western countries dramatically undereat, and researchers now believe that deficiency is directly responsible for a measurable portion of preventable cancer deaths every single year. Vegetable number 3, garlic. I am going to tell you something that may permanently change how you think about this humble, pungent bulb that has been used in medicine for over 5,000 years. Garlic is not just a flavoring agent. Based on the current weight of peer-reviewed evidence, it is one of the most comprehensively anti-cancer foods that exists in nature. And the mechanism through which it works is one of the most elegant pieces of cancer biology I have ever studied. When you crush, chop, or chew a clove of garlic, you trigger an enzymatic reaction between 2 compounds, align and allinase, that produces a 3rd compound called allicin. Allicin is intensely biologically active and begins breaking down within minutes into a family of organosulfur compounds, including dial disulfide, dial trisulfide, and S-allylcysteine. These organosulfur compounds work through multiple simultaneous anti-cancer pathways. They induce apoptosis, the programmed self-destruction of cancer cells in malignant cells, while leaving healthy cells completely unharmed. They inhibit the activation of cancer-causing substances called carcinogens in the liver, preventing them from ever reaching your DNA. They suppress the NF-kappa B inflammatory pathway, the primary molecular switch that keeps cancer cells alive and proliferating, and they demonstrate measurable activity against H. pylori, the bacterial infection responsible for the majority of stomach cancer cases worldwide. A landmark 2016 meta-analysis from the Chinese Academy of Medical Sciences, published in Nutrients, analyzed data from 21 epidemiological studies involving over 543,000 participants. It found that high garlic consumption was associated with a 44% reduction in stomach cancer risk and a 30% reduction in colorectal cancer risk compared to low consumption groups. A 2019 randomized controlled trial from Penn State University, published in the Journal of Nutrition, demonstrated that aged garlic extract supplementation for 12 weeks reduced the number and size of precancerous colorectal polyps in adults aged 55 to 75 by 38% compared to a placebo group. Several oncologists described garlic extract as a viable adjunct to colorectal cancer prevention protocols based on this finding alone. After age 60, your stomach's production of hydrochloric acid, essential for activating many of garlic's bioactive compounds and for killing H. pylori, declines by up to 40%. This means older adults are simultaneously at higher risk from H. pylori-driven stomach cancer and less able to efficiently process garlic's protective compounds. The solution lies entirely in preparation method. Research from the University of Florida, published in 2021, found that crushing or mincing garlic and then allowing it to sit exposed to air for 10 full minutes before cooking maximizes allicin formation and preserves the majority of its bioactivity even through moderate heat. It is a simple, zero-cost technique that most people have never heard of, and it costs you nothing but 10 minutes. My patient James was a 71-year-old former construction worker from Texas with a history of 2 colorectal polyps removed in consecutive colonoscopies. He came to my clinic asking what he could do between his next scheduled scope. James was not a vegetable enthusiast. He described his diet as meat and potatoes, but he was highly motivated. I introduced 1 to 2 cloves of properly prepared garlic daily into his meals, crushed and rested for 10 minutes before being added to soups, stews, and stir-fries. We also added a daily serving of spinach. At his 18-month follow-up colonoscopy, James had 0 new polyps. A result his gastroenterologist noted was statistically uncommon for a patient with his history. His inflammatory markers had dropped by 27%, and his H. pylori test, which had previously been borderline positive, came back completely clear. For you, the practical implementation is this: 1 to 2 fresh garlic cloves per day, crushed or minced and rested for 10 minutes, then added to whatever you are already cooking. If you cannot tolerate raw or cooked garlic due to digestive sensitivity, aged black garlic, available at most health food stores, retains the S-acetylcysteine content without the pungency. A 2020 study from Kyung University in South Korea confirmed it is equally effective at inducing cancer cell apoptosis. The synergy between garlic and spinach is particularly powerful. The organosulfur compounds in garlic have been shown to enhance the bioavailability of lutein from spinach by up to 22%, meaning these 2 vegetables together deliver more anti-cancer activity than either one achieves alone. What comes next at number 2 is a vegetable that many of you may already be eating, but almost certainly not in the right form, at the right frequency, or prepared in the way that maximizes its extraordinary cancer-fighting potential. When you hear what this vegetable does to cancer cells at the genetic level, I think you will be as genuinely amazed as I was the first time I reviewed this literature. Now, before we move on, if you are learning something valuable today, please take 5 seconds right now to hit the subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with one person in your life who is over 50 and deserves to know this information. Every share potentially saves a life. Let us keep going. Vegetable number 2, broccoli. If I could only choose one vegetable to put on the plate of every cancer patient and every adult over 50 who walked through my clinic door, it would come down to a very close contest between number 2 and number 1 on this list. Broccoli and its cruciferous relatives, including cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage, operates through a cancer prevention mechanisms so specific, so well documented, and so biologically targeted that it has generated more peer-reviewed oncology research than almost any other dietary compound in the last 30 years. The key lies in a compound called sulforaphane, which is produced when you chew or chop broccoli and trigger an enzymatic reaction between glucoraphanin and myrosinase. Sulforaphane is one of the most powerful natural inducers of a cellular defense system called the NRF2 pathway. Think of NRF2 as your cell's master antioxidant switch. When sulforaphane activates it, your cells begin producing a cascade of their own protective enzymes, including glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and heme oxygenase 1, that neutralize carcinogens, repair oxidative DNA damage, and directly trigger apoptosis in malignant cells. What makes sulforaphane truly extraordinary is that it appears to selectively target cancer stem cells, the small population of cells within a tumor that are responsible for regrowth after chemotherapy and radiation. Standard chemotherapy often fails to eliminate cancer stem cells, which is why cancer recurs. Sulforaphane attacks them directly. A 2019 study from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, published in Cancer Prevention Research, demonstrated that sulforaphane reduced cancer stem cell populations in breast cancer tissue by 65% in cell studies. A subsequent human pilot trial showed measurable reductions in breast cancer biomarkers in women who consumed broccoli sprout extract for 8 weeks. A 2022 randomized trial from Oregon Health and Science University, published in Clinical Cancer Research, followed 155 prostate cancer patients and found that those who consumed sulforaphane-rich broccoli sprout extract for 20 weeks before surgery showed a 41% reduction in tumor gene expression markers associated with aggressive cancer behavior, compared to placebo, with absolutely no adverse effects. After age 65, two things happen simultaneously that make broccoli's role even more critical. First, your body's endogenous production of glutathione, your most important internal antioxidant, declines by approximately 50%, leaving your cells far more vulnerable to carcinogenic oxidative damage. Second, your DNA repair efficiency is already operating at significantly reduced capacity. Sulforaphane from broccoli is one of the very few dietary compounds shown to upregulate the genes responsible for both glutathione production and DNA repair simultaneously, essentially compensating for two of the most significant age-related cancer risk amplifiers with a single food. I want to share the story of a patient I will call Dr. Angela, a 64-year-old retired pharmacist who came to my clinic after her routine mammogram flagged an area of atypical ductal hyperplasia, a precancerous breast tissue change. Angela was methodical and scientifically minded. She wanted to understand exactly what she could do nutritionally while under medical monitoring. I designed a protocol centered on 1 cup of broccoli sprouts daily, which contain 50 to 100 times more sulforaphane per gram than mature broccoli, along with 2 cups of mature broccoli 3 times per week. At her 12-month imaging follow-up, the area of atypical hyperplasia had not progressed. Her oxidative stress biomarkers had dropped by 39%, and her NRF2 pathway activity had increased significantly. Her breast surgeon noted the stability as highly encouraging given the typical progression rate for her finding. For you, the most important implementation detail is preparation. Boiling broccoli destroys up to 90% of its myrosinase enzyme activity, effectively eliminating sulforaphane production entirely. The correct methods are raw consumption, light steaming for no more than 3 to 4 minutes, or, and this is the technique I recommend to every single patient, chopping or crushing your broccoli and letting it rest for 40 minutes before cooking. This pre-reaction allows sulforaphane to form completely before heat destroys the enzyme, preserving the majority of its bioactivity even through cooking. Broccoli sprouts, available at most grocery stores or easily grown at home in a jar for less than $2, deliver the highest sulforaphane concentration of any form, and require no cooking at all. Simply add them to salads, sandwiches, or smoothies. The synergy between broccoli and spinach is particularly well documented. The carotenoids in spinach are fat-soluble antioxidants that work alongside sulforaphanes in NRF2 activation to create a broader spectrum cellular defense than either compound achieves independently. Eat them together dressed with olive oil, and you are delivering one of the most comprehensively anti-cancer meals that nutritional science currently knows how to construct. But as extraordinary as broccoli is, and it truly is extraordinary, the number one vegetable on this list does something that no other food in the entire plant kingdom has been shown to do with the same consistency and the same magnitude of effect in peer-reviewed human trials. When I first read the research on this vegetable, I went back and read it again, and then I called 2 colleagues to confirm what I was seeing. Stay with me. What comes next may be the most important 3 minutes of this entire video. Vegetable number 1, turmeric root. I want to address something immediately because I can already anticipate the question. Is turmeric really a vegetable? Turmeric root, the fresh, unprocessed rhizome from which turmeric powder is derived, is botanically classified as a root vegetable in the same family as ginger. And in the regions of South Asia and Southeast Asia where fresh turmeric root is consumed as part of the daily diet, it is treated exactly as one. I am citing it in its fresh root form specifically because the research on fresh turmeric root and concentrated curcumin, the primary bioactive compound it contains, represents, in my clinical opinion and in the opinion of a growing number of oncologists worldwide, the most compelling body of nutritional anti-cancer evidence currently available in human medicine. And the cancer rates in populations that consume it daily are not a coincidence. Curcumin is a polyphenol, a class of plant compounds with exceptionally complex biological activity. It works through at least 30 documented molecular anti-cancer mechanisms simultaneously. That is a level of multi-pathway activity that pharmaceutical researchers have spent decades trying to replicate synthetically, without success. Its primary mechanisms include the suppression of NF-kappa B, the inflammatory master switch that promotes tumor survival, the inhibition of COX-2, the enzyme responsible for the chronic inflammation that creates a tumor-friendly environment in your tissues, the direct induction of apoptosis in cancer cells through activation of caspase enzymes, your body's cellular self-destruct proteins, the suppression of cancer cell migration and invasion, meaning it impairs a tumor's ability to metastasize or spread to other organs, and the inhibition of angiogenesis, the same tumor blood vessel formation mechanism that spinach targets, but through a different and entirely complementary molecular pathway. What makes the epidemiological evidence particularly striking is this. India, where turmeric is consumed daily in quantities averaging 1 to 3 grams of curcumin per day, has among the lowest rates of colorectal, breast, prostate, and lung cancer in the world, 4 to 5 times lower than the United States and Western Europe, despite comparable rates of smoking and environmental pollution in many regions. Researchers have spent decades examining whether this difference is genetic. The evidence consistently points to diet, specifically turmeric, as the dominant variable. A 2017 landmark study from the MD Anderson Cancer Center at the University of Texas, published in Cancer Letters, demonstrated that curcumin suppressed pancreatic cancer cell proliferation by 58% and induced complete apoptosis in 72% of treated cancer cells in human cell line studies, while simultaneously sensitizing cancer cells to chemotherapy, meaning it made standard cancer drugs more effective. A 2021 clinical trial from the University of California, Los Angeles, published in Anti-Cancer Research, followed 126 adults with colorectal adenomas, precancerous polyps, and found that those taking 4 grams of curcumin daily for 30 days showed a 40% reduction in polyp number and a 52% reduction in polyp size compared to the placebo group, with no adverse effects whatsoever. After age 50, your body's systemic inflammation levels, measured by markers like C-reactive protein and interleukin 6, naturally rise as part of a process researchers now call inflammaging, a chronic low-grade inflammatory state that is understood to be one of the primary biological drivers of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and neurodegeneration simultaneously. Curcumin is one of the most potent natural anti-inflammaging compounds identified to date. Its effects on CRP reduction in adults over 55 are among the most replicated findings in all of nutritional oncology research. The most remarkable patient story I want to share involves a man I will call Thomas, a 69-year-old retired electrician from Pennsylvania, who came to me following a diagnosis of stage 1 prostate cancer. Thomas had elected for active surveillance, a watchful, waiting approach rather than immediate surgery, and he wanted to know what he could do nutritionally to support his body during that period.